Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like
this podcast.
As always, we're your host, Blake, and my brother,
Brooks.
Before we get started, as always, please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help. I know that off season, not as consistent, but if you guys start liking and subscribing and commenting, that would be great, and we'll do these a lot more often. Remember to follow us on Twitter at @CHusker_corner and on Instagram at CornhuskerCorner. So now that that's out of the way, how you been? It's been a while.
You know, I've been great. It has been a while. It's been a much needed break. You know, I love Husker football. I love college football in general. As you know, as the season ends, it is kind of nice to just decompress a little bit, watch some other sports. Speaking of other sports, for those who don't know, Blake is an Eagles fan, and the Eagles, that was a great game. I will say it was fun to watch. Fantastic Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl. Fantastic game, fun to watch. Got to be happy for Andy Reid. But that holding call at the end, I did want to get your thoughts on that. What do you think about the whole thing?
Okay, so just in thoughts in general in the game.
Yeah, go ahead.
The field was crap. I'm not using that as an excuse, but the field was crap. And when you have a defensive line that goes as hard as we do, that does not bode well. And that you could really tell just in terms of us being able to contain the run on the Chiefs, offense. When that happens, they're going to be able to. When you have Mahomes back there and you can run the ball, it's going to be really hard to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
the defensive line didn't really do much that game, did they?
No, they didn't. And
I didn't even think about that.
If you go and see the actual compilation of just plays of the game, and you see how many times that the defensive lineman fell down, and Chiefs players fell down too. This is by no means an excuse, but that kind of took away a very strong hold of that defense. And when you give Patrick Mahomes that much time, he doesn't need that much time with that receiving core he has with one of the best tight ends ever to play.
He doesn't even need two legs.
No, not really. So that's that.
Yeah.
That holding call, I know people keep pointing to it and being like, oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I understand that. But I don't think it should have been called. But, he did hold them a little bit. He did. And was it enough? The pass was kind of uncatchable.
It was. It was. I mean, look, I appreciate how objective you're being, because coming from your mouth, it wouldn't feel as objective. But I'll say this. That call was ridiculous in that moment. And here's what I mean by that. What I mean by that is, and I've heard this comparison made a lot to a home plate umpire calling strikes and balls. He wasn't calling a strike there all game. You know what I mean? He wasn't calling a strike there all game. And then in the bottom of the ninth inning, the count is 3-2. And then he calls a strike there, or vice versa, calls a ball there. You know what I mean? It's like there was not one holding call that entire game. And then they called it in the one moment where it would literally seal the game for Kansas City. Mm-hmm. It was questionable. Look, I don't think there's any weird I don't think there's any weird conspiracy or up the ladder. Oh, Brooks bet
pretty bad.
Brooks bet on Philadelphia, so we got to make sure that Philadelphia loses. I don't think there was anything like that. I do think that it was just a ref being a ref, saw something and just made a call in the moment. Probably didn't even think about the implications of anything. That's not his job to think about the implications at the end of the day. But it is just unfortunate. But it was a great game. Congrats to Kansas City.
Yeah, congrats to Kansas City. And I know that, as Nebraska fans, there's lots of Chiefs fans in that Husker fandom. I mean, but you have to just in terms of the game, I hated that they just took out. I understand why, he doesn't just run in for the touchdown. He, slides down. It's the Super Bowl. Like, you're going to play Madden at the Super Bowl? Like, that's something people do in Madden. So, like, you don't get another chance to throw a Hail Mary. Like, It was just such an anticlimactic way to end the game, especially, like, Jalen Hurts didn't get even a chance to have that.
No, I know. But here's the thing, if you're a Nebraska fan, you see what they did at the end with the dude kneeling on the 1 yard line to give him that chance, And as a Nebraska fan, you're like, they did what they had to do to win the game, man. There's countless times where I look at our strategy in those situations. Yeah, exactly. And it was a great game. I thought it was a fun environment. And congrats to both teams. I think, like you said, there's a lot of Kansas City fans that are part of that are also Nebraska fans. I've noticed that. I've also noticed it seems like Nebraska fans are either Kansas City fans, Broncos fans, Chicago fans, or Minnesota fans, or Green Bay fans. I see those types of Midwestern teams a lot with Nebraska, but Kansas City most of all because it's just 2.5 hours south of the stadium, and Arrowhead's a great environment. But man, the trash talk that was going on,
dude, I know. And one thing that I haven't seen that you were saying before the game and all season really is like Philadelphia is like a paper tiger. They don't deserve to be here. They're trash. They're this, that. I know we lost, but I think the way we lost and the way we actually played that game, that I haven't seen that point brought up. Like, no, see, they lost because they were terrible. No, like those are obviously the two best teams in the NFL this year, and I don't know how many years that you can actually say that is the case going into the Super Bowl. And,
arguably, because look at the game before with Kansas City. It's arguably they got handed that game too. I don't remember the exact call, but I remember it was a big referee decision that made a big
the Bengals
in the Bengals game. Yeah, Cincinnati. That's the other team that seems to be picking up a lot of Husker fan fans just because of Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor and Jimmy Burrow's son, Joe Burrow. I mean, and CTB, Cam Taylor-Britt coming on midway through the year and really having a hell of a back half of the rookie season. So shout out to Cam Taylor-Britt as well. But yeah, I wanted to talk about a few of those NFL notes before we got on to Husker football.
No, you have to. I'll just leave it on this. I left that game feeling really like I don't know how long it's going to be till we get here again. Not really. I don't think we have the people in place. We have so many free agents on that team that were contributors, and so our GM Howie Roseman, he's going to have to do a lot in this offseason for us to get back there. I think because he has a lot. He's going to have to do a lot of negotiating.
See, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always heard that the strong suit of the Philadelphia Eagles these last 5 or 6 years have been the core of linemen that have really been there the whole time. So is that really where you're looking at when it comes to all that stuff, the line?
There's a defensive line. Three of our defensive line are free agents. Sue was on a 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year. I think he's going to retire, right?
Yeah, probably.
Shout out to Sue, by the way. Shout out to Sue. Gotta love that guy. I mean, he gets a Super Bowl on his way out, and the conversation sort of arose in these last couple weeks of is Sue the greatest Husker NFL player of all time? As being a young person, my short answer, based on who I know and the circumstances of where I grew up and stuff, Will Shields is the greatest Nebraska NFL player of all time.
Yeah.
Arguably, but I mean, Will Shields went to 9 Pro Bowls or something like that, a Pro Bowl every year.
He's a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer. Yeah. I mean, and Sue will probably arguably be in the Hall of Fame as well. I mean, but maybe not first ballot, but we'll see.
I think we're also impartial to Will because we know him.
Well, Will's a legend. I mean, here's the thing: Will's a legend. But for those who don't know, you played AAU basketball in what, 3rd and 4th grade? Was that it with Siobhan?
All the way through 5th.
So 3rd through 5th grade with Siobhan. Yeah. So we know the Shields, and then you went back there and worked out at his facility
facility a couple of years in high school.
Yeah, wasn't it before you were going into high school, like your freshman year or sophomore
Yeah, it was
year or
before
something?
freshman year.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, well, and he was at the Super Bowl too. I thought that
Yeah, I
was
saw him, yeah.
I was like, oh, there he is. And I was like, dang, he's lost weight.
Yeah, he's not playing anymore.
Yeah, shout out to Will Shields. You looking trim, brother. But yeah, also another shout out I wanted to give before we moved on to Husker football. Shout out to Nebraska ball, baby. Shout out to Nebraska
sure.
ball, because I don't know if you've been paying attention to what they've been
have.
doing these last couple games, but man, that Japanese Steph Curry, Keisei Tominaga, he is fun to watch. He's not just a shooter. He moves around. He drives to the basket. They're a fun team to watch. I watched the game yesterday. It was a very fun game to watch. Sam Hoiberg, Fred Hoiberg's son, came in and stole the ball in overtime to win the game for him. I mean, it was just there's fun stuff going on with Nebraska ball right now. So if you haven't checked them out, check them out, and it's fun to watch. So
Still
shout
gonna
out to
miss the
them.
tournament though, unless they win the Big Ten tournament.
So here's the situation. The situation is, if anybody has been peripherally following them all year, you know that for the first 15 games of the season, it didn't look good, and it looked like they were heading towards maybe having their coach be fired, not reaching the postseason at all in any capacity, and it didn't look good. Their two star players got hurt. Two of their star players got hurt. And it really messed up. I mean, and a bunch of people have stepped up, essentially, is what's happened. A bunch of people have stepped up, scoring where we didn't expect them to be scoring, and all of a sudden Nebraska is able to do things like going to Rutgers and winning handily, and then beating a Maryland team that just beat Purdue at home in a great game, and where they were down and they came back. They just show a lot of grit. So we're Nebraska fans, got to give respect where it's due. And I think Fred's saved his job, and they're looking at a potential NIT bid if they can win. I'd say probably 2 out of the next 3. They could probably secure an NIT bid if they're over 500 by the end of the year, and if they win out and win 1 or 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, they might get a tournament bid. That's where we're looking at. They'd have to get to about 19 wins to get to a tournament bid, and they're at 14-14 right now. So shout out to Nebraska ball. Just wanted to give them a quick shout out. Shout out to Keisei Tominaga. Respect, brother. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. So also one thing I saw on Twitter the other day that I thought just was really cool was it was announced this year. Brian Buschini announced this year that he will be wearing number 18 to pay respect to the late great Brooke Behringer, which, if you know anything about Nebraska and Nebraska sports, Brooke Behringer is an example of an amazing human being, a community man, an incredible teammate. And he was
Great football player.
Great football player. They were
talking about a first round.
Yeah, NFL bid for him.
NFL.
I mean, yeah, because he came in and he was a completely different style of quarterback than what we had. And then because Tommy got hurt and all that stuff,
Yeah.
And I wasn't alive back then. I'm trying to do it as much justice as possible, but I've seen the documentaries. Okay, Decade of Dominance, I believe, is one of them. One of them's called. But anyway, so I love that, paying respect to Brooke Behringer. Every time I pass that Brooke Behringer statue outside of the stadium, almost cry. Lost too soon in a plane crash. Man, it's tragic, and I'm happy to see that 20 years later, someone's able to pay respect to that. So that's pretty cool as well.
Your memory lives on as long as people remember you.
I've never seen that movie, but
You've never seen Coco? If you
I've
don't
never
wanna
seen
cry,
that movie.
Don't watch Coco.
I watched
every time.
I watched the beginning of it, but I was like, man, this is too much Spanish for me. I don't speak.
Spanish version?
Yeah, it was like, this is the ofrenda, and I was like, I don't know what that is. And then I think I fell asleep. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite Pixar movies.
Really? Okay, I'll watch it. Coco.
Coco.
I've heard about it. I've heard it's really good if you like music. That's why I wanted to watch it. But yeah, so here we are. We're in February. It's February 20th of 2023. Matt Rule has been the coach at Nebraska for 4 months, which seems like 10 years at this point.
I didn't think it was that long.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well,
Like,
he's
this
been
football season just ended for me.
yeah.
So that's probably why it didn't feel.
Well, what I mean by it seemed like 10 years is he's done about 10 years of work in those 4 months.
Oh.
I mean, this guy has been getting to work. Talk about a grinder. I mean, look, no games have been played on the field yet, but based on what has happened in these last 4 months and how he is operating this program, he is absolutely exactly what Trev described whenever he went on the radio show like a week after Frost was fired and he described who he wanted as head coach. It's Matt Rule. I mean, characteristically. So yeah, it's been fun to watch. There's been lots of news. He's got his class wrapped up. They brought in 39 new people, which is insane. Think about that. Brought in 39 new people. He brought in 28 high school guys and 11 transfer portal guys. So it's interesting. There's a lot of new talent in. Year after year, this is going to happen. I think this is just going to be the new norm where you look at each team, and each team is going to be very, very different from each other. So I guess what is probably a good thing to start with talking about this topic is there's lots of new guys, and we could hit on all of them, but we're not reporters, so we won't. If you want to learn who all these guys are, there's plenty of videos on that type of stuff. And you and I have been following all that, so we generally know who all these guys are. But we are going to go ahead and pick a top 3 likely contributors of who you think will be the contributors from these 39 people. It could be, did I say freshman or transfer? So any of the 39 people that are new to the program, for contribution at any position. So you could go ahead and go because I know you already got yours picked. But go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I'm trying to look back up. Look back up who I picked.
No worries.
I remember who they were. I can see their faces, but I don't want to bungle their names. Let's see.
Well, I know one of your guys. I know you.
I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
So at number 3, Malachi Coleman.
Okay.
I just there's something about the kid when you see him play, and he just reminds me of how having some sort of intangible, just that not everybody has. Some people are really great athletes, and you see them play, but some people just have an intangible, and you can't put your finger on it. And I think that is really going to help contribute to this offense sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be one of those redshirt people. I just don't, because if you look at him in his size, like he needs to put a little bit of weight on, but he's a speed guy too, so you don't want to put too much weight on. So he doesn't really have that problem that a lot of guys would. Like look at Devonta Smith, okay, in my head. He plays a lot like that. So yeah, that's my number 3.
Okay, on Malachi, real quick, if I could say something on him. Yep. So his body, I know this is like KD is way bigger than Malachi, but his body type sort of reminds me of Kevin Durant, where Kevin Durant doesn't look strong. If you look at Kevin Durant's legs, his legs look like pencil legs. But he's one of the most insane athletes on the planet, and he plays in the NBA, and he's getting fouled multiple times a game. He's durable. He's much more durable than he looks. He's been hurt a lot, don't get me wrong. But for how he looks, I mean, I'm like, damn, his leg looks like it would break in half if anybody, you know what I mean? That's how KD looks. And I'm not saying that's how Malachi looks, but Malachi has that body type where he is just a freak of nature athlete. Doesn't really matter how he looks. I think he might be one of those redshirt contributors.
Devontae Smith, like he looks like him. Devontae Smith is freaking wiry.
Yes, he is.
But he will outmuscle guys for the ball, and he will just plays so aggressively.
He catches everything too, man. He catches everything.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. But yeah, Malachi. I think me personally, you say he's not going to contribute in redshirt. I think he'll play his 4 games. I think he will.
No, I said he probably wouldn't redshirt.
Oh, you did? I thought you said he probably. Oh, okay, got it.
I don't think he will redshirt.
Got it. So you think he's ready to go? Got it.
I think he's more ready than.
Because these are top 3 likely contributors of the new guys, so that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Malachi.
Malachi. Number 2. This area of our team been weak for a really long time, and there's one conference that is really good at developing offensive linemen. You look in the league, the NFL, and how the percentage of SEC guys that are still playing in the league, it's crazy. And we got one of those people to come over to our team, Jacob Hood, right? So, and if you've seen the guy play, he's really strong. Has a good head.
6'8", 340.
Yeah, he's huge. He's huge, and we need that. You need that in the Big Ten. You just do because it's on the line of scrimmage. Big Ten football's on the line of scrimmage. That's where you win or lose games. And I think he's really going to bolster. Even if he's got to play. I was gonna say even if he's not a starter, but I'm just trying to think of the other linemen, and we've had some attrition. there with,
even if he doesn't start, he'll play. Like, look, someone made a point about Bryce Benhart the other day that if you watch the last 5 games of the season, he started to look better all of a sudden. And so I don't want to just completely trash Bryce Benhart going into this year and say Jacob Hood's definitely going to start, Jacob Hood and Turner Corcoran or whoever else, because Bryce Benhart's got a chance. He's a highly rated player coming out of high school, and he has experience at this point. So
yeah, and just think of the other guys that we still technically have here. I don't know if they're still going to be here, but
we'll see.
New Willie is still here.
Yeah.
And he's good.
Well, Dr. Rob says Newilly and Prohaska are the 2 best linemen on the team.
Yeah,
Dr. Rob Zadiska.
Yeah, and Prohaska, it just got hurt again, so that's 2 years in a row he's gotten hurt.
Right.
So that's something to watch as a lineman, because those sometimes you just can't get over it. But if you think of those just those 3, and with Jacob Hood, those are those 3. Then you talked about Benhart, and those are just 4 linemen that you can just name off the top of your head. I think they're good. And
I'm going to go ahead and include my 3rd pick right here because it makes sense, which is Ben Scott. Because you include him in that. My third pick for likely contributor is Ben Scott, because Ben Scott is going to be the center. It's not just a likely contributor. He's going to contribute. He's going to be the center. That's how it's seeming, because I believe Piper is going to be his backup, and Piper might rotate through other positions as well. But Ben Scott is my 3rd likely contributor, and that just illustrates the point. There's a lot of potential linemen, and it's different faces this year, so I'm interested in that, especially with Rule being an offensive line guy. He's a developer of that position group. So, all right, who's your number 1?
Number 1, Eric Gilbert.
Okay.
All right, and here's why.
And it's Arik, by the way. I just want to say that. It's
okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was, and then
no. I thought it was Eric too, but MJ Sherman, who's played with him, he said it's Arik.
Okay, so I've heard it go both ways. And I just picked one.
Yeah. No.
Anyways,
Eric's fine. He's fine with that, but Arik is how it's pronounced. Yeah.
Arik. Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at our tight end room, we're losing Vokalek. So we have to bolster that a little bit more. We have Fedoni in there, and now we have him. And just for a 1-2 punch, if Fedoni can get healthy and actually get on the field, he's one of those people that you just look at how he's played, and he has an intangible about him. And right now it's kind of like a mystique and it's always the next guy kind of thing. But you look at the kid and you're like, okay, he looks like George Kittle.
Dude, his LSU wide receiver highlights are pretty insane.
Yeah,
they're very insane. He played wide receiver because they needed to find a way to get him on the field. So they played him at wide receiver in a wide receiver core that Trey Palmer was a 3rd stringer in. So Arik Gilbert, the way I see Arik Gilbert is that it's going to be either he's not only a contributor, but he's a game breaker, or he's nowhere to be seen. That's how I kind of see it, because if we can find a way to get him on the field, like Matt Rule said about him, his football stuff takes care of itself. He's an incredible football player, and that's obvious. But if we don't see him, I feel like we just won't see him at all, because it seems like it's off the field stuff that he's dealing with, and I don't know what to say to that, whether it's personal issues or grades or whatever that is. But Matt Rule is building a family style environment. You can tell. I mean, just the dudes are really responding, it seems to him, based on just some of the stuff we've seen. He really, really likes to build relationships with the people he works with on a daily basis and make sure that they have everything they need and are taken care of. So I'm not saying Georgia isn't that environment. I'm sure it is. But at the end of the day, Georgia, they're a national championship caliber program at this point. and they don't have time for any of that type of stuff. They have too many athletes ready to go, and they just I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like somebody like Eric Gilbert or like Eric Gilbert could get lost in the shuffle at a school like that if he's having off the field issues. Whereas at Nebraska, he's going to get a lot more focus and attention. So hopefully that'll translate to success on the field. So your 3 is Malachi, your 2 is Jacob Hood, and your 1 is Eric Gilbert. That's a good list. Okay. So I already said my number 3. It's Ben Scott. Ben's going to start center for us. He was recruited. He played for Arizona State, I believe. And then he started for them at guard, but they wanted to move him over center over here. He was a get because of Dominic Raiola, believe it or not, from what I hear. Dominic Raiola helped Donovan in the recruiting process with here. Dominic lives in Arizona State. That evidently they had prior ties to Ben Scott. That whole thing got set up. So I'm excited about Ben Scott coming in. So that's my number 3. My number 2, I would have to say, is probably Jeff Sims. Jeff Sims is, I believe, here's the thing. Even if Jeff doesn't start, and the same thing goes for Casey. Even if Casey doesn't start or Jeff doesn't start, both of them are going to play at some point. Or Logan. But we'll get to that later. Matt Rule was asked about quarterbacks the other night. He brought up everybody's name. The one name he didn't bring up, Logan Smothers. He didn't even say his name. So I look, Matt Rule seems like everything he says is intentional. Everything, he thinks about everything that comes out of his mouth. So I don't think he would have just forgot Logan on purpose. It could have been an accident, but I think maybe we're looking at a position change there, but we'll see. But we'll see. So my number 2 is Jeff Sims. I think he's a very talented prospect. I think that his numbers are a little bit deceptive. He is around a 55% completion guy, 50 to 55% completion guy throughout his career at Georgia Tech. But not very many tools at Georgia Tech. His best year was when their running back was Jahmyr Gibbs, who was Alabama's running back last year. And that was his best stats year. But he's got all the tools. He can run. He can throw. Matt Rule likes him. So we'll see what kind of preferential treatment is given in here and there. But my number 2 is Jeff Sims. Okay. My number 1 contributor is going to be a little bit off the wall. I don't know if anybody's thinking about this one, but our edge position is completely, think about it. We've lost O'Shawn and Garrett at this point. We need an anchor at that position. Mikael Sherman from Georgia he was a contributor on that defense. He played on special teams every time, but he was a contributor on that. He was on the 3 deep on the defense, and he got in on the rotation at Georgia. And we're talking about probably the best defensive program in the country. So MJ Sherman, I think, from everything I've heard about him, he is a dog who is just ready to break out. And so I really expect big things out of the edge position from MJ Sherman. And I think it's kind of interesting because he's a little bit more low profile, obviously, than when we got O'Shawn last year.
It was I'm laughing.
Yeah.
You're getting hype over another edge.
No. When we got O'Shawn last year, how could you not get hype? His decision process had 5,000 viewers. You know what I mean? The whole thing was a bit of a circus surrounding the hype of O'Shawn. But MJ, it's a little bit more low key. Not a whole lot of people are talking about him. And so I'm really expecting big things from him, and we need it because that edge position is a little bit depleted. So I got Ben Scott, Jeff Sims, I almost said O'Shawn Masseth, and MJ Sherman. Okay. All right. So interesting.
Your list. That's fine. I didn't think about those guys. And Sims, I've decided that I'm done. Looking at quarterbacks and going, oh, this next guy. So I haven't seen him play a lot. And again, he still could not be here at the start of the season. Mm-hmm. I start to really pay attention to that after spring ball, because after spring ball, there's a lot of attrition, and then I can really start deep diving into, especially when summer conditioning starts. Most likely those guys that are still going to be there start of the season. So
right. To me, the X factor when it comes to the quarterback battle is what is the offense? What is the offense? Like, who does it fit better? Because we know that there's a certain offense that Casey would beat Jeff Sims out of easily. And we know that there's a certain offense that probably Jeff Sims would beat Casey out of pretty easily. K-State, Jeff Sims would run K-State better, right? Or versus, a pass-heavy offense. Tennessee, Casey would probably run Tennessee better than Jeff, right? So that's, to me, the X factor. And we got to know Marcus Satterfield a little bit, the offensive coordinator. He had a press conference. And one of the most interesting things in his press conference was that we're bringing the fullback back. The fullback is back, baby. And I'm interested in this because when people say fullback, to me, what they mean is a dedicated lead blocker. Is that sort of like, it could be an H-back, it could be a wing in some capacity that's doing a pulling motion
it's
or
basically
something.
making sure there's an extra lineman out there that
Right.
could also run with the ball, but
right. So when I say fullback, people think the middle guy in the I formation, right? And I don't think that's quite what he means. I think we'll probably see the I here and there, but so when he said fullback, it's unfortunate because the first name that popped into my mind was Jacques Yant. And Jacques Yant, because like, here's the thing, like Jacques Yant didn't seem like he was a natural runner with the ball, but he's so big and he hits the hole so hard that it's like, I could see him being a fullback totally, but nope, Jacques transferred to Florida A&M. So my question is, of the people that you know that are on the roster, who do you think fits the mold of being a fullback? Now we got to transfer in. I forget his name. Let me go ahead and Google that real quick. But there's a couple guys on this roster that I look at. I'm like, you're like, you could be a Chancellor Brewington. Like you look at Chance. That position would have been perfect for Chance because Chance had no fear and he was just putting people on their back left and right, right? But I don't know. Who do you think fits the mold of fullback at the school right now?
there's one person that is in my head right now, and I do not remember his name.
Trevor Ruth, by the way, he transferred from Nebraska Kearney. He's an actual fullback. He's part of that 39. Okay. So I wanted to go ahead and give him a shout out. So yeah. The last real fullback we had was Janovich, right? That was the last real dedicated fullback that we had.
Yeah.
He was a stud, man. He was a real stud. I don't know. I see maybe one of the running backs.
No, hold on. I have the perfect person, and I just have to make sure I see his name. It's not a running back. It's one of our tight ends.
Borkacher?
Borkacher,
Nate Borkacher? Oh, that's a good pick.
Yeah.
That's a good pick.
Because he is not a tight end, but he was out there kind of for depth and necessity. He doesn't have the best hands, but he's physical. Mm-hmm. He's not like a big, you wouldn't look at him and go, oh, you're a tight end, because he's a little shorter. He's a little, like, he's not fat, but he's a little stockier. He's more of a traditional tight end than what tight ends are now.
Yeah.
So you move that back, and
he's like sort of an H-back sort of hybrid position. That's how I see. When he says fullback, that's how I see. I see him being like in a shallow wing position, like as an H-back. Like sort of in between the guard and the tackle, just sort of position there. Mm-hmm. But behind him, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, yeah, that's interesting to me that the fullback's coming back. I hope that our run game is strong, because Rule has just left and right. I want to play defense and I want to have a strong run game, and I really want to see it. And you know what? It's going to be on display, because I want to go ahead and announce this. I'm going to the spring game. I'm going to the spring game. I'm going to be doing some journalism in the field for this podcast. I'll be paying close attention to what's going on, and hopefully they're tackling this year. So, yeah. But here's the thing: we have a big roster, but it's about to be trimmed down, which could play a part in this spring game, because Title IX. This is the excuse they're sort of using. Title IX sort of mandated. If you know anything about Title IX, essentially it means that you have to have an equal amount of male and female athletes at any given school. And Nebraska has a 150 plus man roster for football, which essentially means they have to find spots. They have to find 30 female spots. Oh, you're gonna be a curler, or you're gonna be an archery person, or you can barely do it. We'll teach you. Come on, you're in the program. So they wanted to get rid of, like, I think really what it was is Matt Rule wanted to downgrade the walk-on program a little bit, and they used Title IX as a bit of an excuse for the face of it, because could you imagine the blowback?
Yeah.
So the roster is going to be getting smaller. It's going to be around 120 people. So we'll see if that plays a role, and if they tackle in the spring game. But one of the interesting things about that roster change, by the way, is so the facilities they're in right now were built by Bill Callahan, who had a similar philosophy to Rule when it comes to roster size. So they were built for 120-man rosters. So they're all too small for what they got right now. The new facilities were built and designed with Scott Frost collaborating, who wanted 150-man plus rosters. So they're huge. Yeah. But now they're downscaling again, so they're way too big. But it's okay. They'll find a way to use the space. It's kind of I just thought that was a funny aspect of the situation. Yeah. Is like they can't figure out what size they do make their facilities.
Better too big than too small.
It is better too big than too small. And with that being said about the roster stuff, I think that more people we'll have some more attrition coming here soon. We've already seen the first couple steps to that. Alante Brown supposedly off the team. From what I hear about that, there is a possibility that he could come back. But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's grade, personal stuff. Again, I have no idea, but he's off the roster as of right now. And Hunter Anthony is the offensive lineman. He's off the team, and he won't be coming back. So that's 2, and probably 25 more to follow. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, just look at our quarterback room for a second. How many scholarship guys do we have in there right now? We have Heinrich Harburg, we have Torres, we have Casey, we have Sims, we have Logan, and
Chubba.
We still have Chubba. That's right.
6. We have 6. We have 6
scholarship.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's getting trimmed in half.
It's too much. Well, he wasn't scholarship, but Jared Seinek's also off the team. He was in that room.
I saw that.
But yeah, so
another quarterback in this draft too, or did he?
No. We were gonna get one. We had Pop Watson, but he was a Whipple guy. Right. and then he didn't even get contacted by the new staff supposedly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, because they have their eyes on the next topic of conversation, which is Dylan Raiola. As we've already talked about, he decommitted from Ohio State a while back. His recruitment is open, and it's emerged the likely candidates being Georgia, USC, and Nebraska. So my read of the situation right now, Georgia picked up another 24 quarterback, and they lost their offensive coordinator to the NFL. My read, because of those two things, and just based on how I'm reading it, I feel that the Dylan Raiola sweepstakes comes down to Nebraska and USC. He visited USC in January. Supposedly he had a really good visit with Lincoln Riley. Before that, the family didn't like Lincoln Riley. Supposedly now they do. So it's just interesting. He's visiting on March 25th. It's one of the most star-studded visiting weekends Nebraska's ever had. Him, along with another 5-star and 7 4-star athletes. I don't know what positions, but so 2 5-stars, 7 4-stars, and then a couple very promising 3-stars that same weekend. But so Dylan Raiola, man, it would be, like we've talked about, program changing sort of commitment if he fulfills his potential. I mean, even if it's like 3/4 fulfills his potential, he's one of the highest rated players of all time. So it would still be a huge benefit to us to have him here. And
you know what's funny? I haven't looked at a single frame of tape on him.
Really? You should look.
He's a high school student. I'm done.
I understand.
I'm done. I did it on Malachi just because.
Well, once he committed, I mean.
Yeah, once he committed, I was.
Yeah.
But like.
You don't want to get too hype. I get it. Yeah, but let me put it this way. He's not the number 1 recruit because his name's Manning. Let me just put it that way. He's not the number one recruit. Even Rayola's. I mean, Rayola's a name of royalty in Nebraska. You know, his dad is a legend. He's not the number one recruit because his name's Rayola. He's the number one recruit because the tools that he brings to the table. He potentially. He looks like Mahomes. Some of his throws, he looks like Mahomes. I mean, like, the dude has a cannon for an arm. He can throw out of all angles. He's an incredible athlete. He's big. He's just got all the tools. So, Raiola, that would be a huge get. At this point, I personally feel that it's down to USC and Nebraska. And look, there's pictures of Dylan Raiola when he was a little kid, just like dressed in Nebraska stuff on the field. You know, like obviously our dad wasn't a legend, but you and I have pictures like that. You know, like he's one of us.
It's something that you can't really compete with in a way. You can convince away from it for sure, but you can't compete with that.
Yes. It's about somebody said this. It's an interesting observation. It's Sean Callahan. Shout out to Sean Callahan. He said that one of the things you look for on recruitment visits is, did the mom come with? And if the mom comes with, especially to Nebraska, like, you're going to get them. And if the mom doesn't come with, they're coming on the visit for fun, basically. And so the important thing with any recruitment is get the mama. You got to get the mama. And so I feel that's important here too, because you got the daddy. I mean, Dominic is a Nebraska guy. He wants him to go to Nebraska, I guarantee. But he wants him to go to the best spot he feels is for his son. So yeah, that Dylan Raiola sweepstakes is going to be interesting. The next couple months are going to be pivotal, and his commitment is looking like late May to June, which is late for but believe it or not, for a prospect of his caliber. Mm-hmm. Normally they're committing around March here. So we could get a surprise commitment, but I doubt that. It'll probably be May and June. So hopefully we'll get him. And if we do, a lot of talent will follow. That's the other thing that nobody talks about. One of the big reasons it would be program changing is when prospects in that class see the 5-star, 1,000 ranked, number one prospect going to a place. They're like, oh, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there. A lot of people follow him. So hopefully that'll happen.
He's a part of the 2024 class, right?
2024 class. Yep. Okay. So a couple more things. I wanted to go ahead and talk about our rivals to the east, the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Iowa Hawkeyes, they extended Brian Ferentz' contract. But so let me describe it to you. It's insane. So they extended it under stipulations. So the stipulations are they have to score 25 points a game and they have to win at least 7 games. They've already been doing that pretty much. So if you're an Iowa fan, you're looking at this and this is nepotism. This is the worst case of nepotism I've ever seen in college football, to be honest with you. I mean, I kind of feel bad for him at this point. I hate to say it, but I kind of feel bad. If I was an Iowa fan, I would just feel hopeless right now because you got this guy who's grandfathered in. He owns the program, basically, in Kirk Ferentz, and he's refusing to do anything about his son who, look, Iowa's never had good offenses under Kirk Ferentz, okay? They've generally, in their best years, been in the 50s, but that's the style of football they play. So the 50s is good enough. 50s, 60s, 70s, that's kind of where they've been. Brian's best year, they were 83. And the other years, they've been 120.
Yeah.
So, this dude sucks. He's a terrible coordinator. And we saw it firsthand. I mean, I have never been less nervous watching an Iowa game, okay? Even though we almost lost. Remember, I think you were watching it with me, weren't you? I don't remember. But
No, I was watching it, though.
Yeah, but I wasn't even nervous. Every time Iowa got the ball, I was like, we'll be just fine. We're going to stop them. and that's not good. That's not good.
No, especially with the caliber of defenses they usually have. They have usually a defense that can keep you in most games. And all you need at that point, it reminds me of the first couple of years under Bo before they didn't really have an offense. Those years that we almost won the Big 12 championships. If we had an offense, we would have won national championships. Because it just reminded me, especially since I had watched those so recently before this season, it reminded me of the Zach Lee years.
Yeah, the 2009 year. Totally.
Yeah.
I agree. That, I mean, because Iowa's defense was elite. I would say, well, here's what I'd say. Iowa's defense was very, very good, almost elite. The difference between those two comparisons is that 2009 Nebraska defense was very, very elite. I mean, it was very elite. So they wouldn't have given up 45 points to Ohio State. They wouldn't have. But anyway, so Iowa, I just think that's funny. And, you know, they're a rival. We play them every year. So this transitions into the next topic of conversation, which is that next year, after 2023, 2024 will be the first year where USC and UCLA will be joining the conference. And the scuttlebutt is that the conference divisions will go away, and it will be broken into pods consisting of 3 teams you play every year, and a cycle of 6 teams one year, 6 teams the next year. So eventually you play every team in your conference on a rolling 2-year period.
So looking a lot more like the NFL structure.
Sort of, yeah. And that's what the SEC is looking at doing as well whenever they go to 16. So my question to you is this. What do you want to be our 3 teams in the Big Ten? What teams do you want to play every year?
Every year?
Yeah.
Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State.
Man, you know what I wish? I wish the Big Ten, because they're the best 2 conferences, I wish the Big Ten and the SEC would strike up a partnership a lot like conferences do in basketball. And I wish we could do stuff like the SEC Big Ten Challenge, where Nebraska and Oklahoma play again on Thanksgiving or Black Friday after Thanksgiving, you know? Like, that would be amazing, but not going to happen. But I have people in mind. I do want to keep playing Iowa. There's something I have grown to like the rivalry. I have. I'm just gonna be honest. It just makes sense geography-wise. It's just 2 corn states, you know, right next to each other. So yeah. Iowa, I think needs to be in there.
I agree with Iowa.
Yep. And then so they're gonna give us either USC or UCLA. They're going to give us one of the, because we're the furthest west team, and so they want that to happen every year rather than them have to go to Piscataway every year or something like that. So it's going to be either USC or UCLA. If I had my pick of those 2, to be honest, I'd choose USC, to be honest, because it's like, bro, they are so inconsistent. You know what I mean? They're so inconsistent. Like, they'll be really good one year, and it would be a hell of a resume builder if you beat them, but the next year they might suck. So yeah. I'd honestly choose USC. And then I'm between, so Iowa, USC, and then I'm between either Wisconsin or Minnesota, one of those 2 teams. I want to play either of those 2 teams every year and make it sort of like a rolling rivalry. But I don't know. Those are my thoughts. What do you think?
So I'm going to take out the whole, we're going to have either USC or.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Take that out.
I'm going to take that out.
I'd
probably like Iowa as well. It's too much of a heated thing now, especially between the fan bases, for it not to keep going on a yearly basis.
Yeah.
And then probably Wisconsin, probably for the same reason, because those games have been, for the most part, really competitive. Mm-hmm. They've had our number, but it's one of those things that, like, I just don't want to run away from the fight. I want it to come. I want to have the feeling when we come back around the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, we'll be playing all these teams every 2 years anyway on a rolling period. So either way, we're playing all of them. But it's just interesting to figure out. So
yeah, for the last one, oh man, I think I know. Really like to play Penn State every year.
Yeah,
I really would.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Penn State would be a great pick, man, because we never play. It seems like they've seemed like the team that we haven't gotten. Like, we've only gotten them like 2 or 3 times the whole time we've been in the Big Ten. No. And we both used to live in Pennsylvania and know a lot of Penn State fans and all that stuff. We've been to State College. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty cool environment. And also the fact I get where you're coming from, because also the fact of Matt Rule being a Penn State guy and having to play them every year as a rival would make it an interesting dynamic.
It would. And also, if you beat them, they've been very consistent. They haven't won anything really great in a while, but they're always a resume builder when you beat them.
Yep.
They're a point of,
they're a very consistent program.
Yep. Very consistent.
You're so right about that.
It would be a good win
Yep.
to beat them.
Yeah, they're never like the best team in college football, but they're never bad either.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, they're a very consistent program. That's a great pick. You know, the other one I was thinking of was, as an honorable mention, was Northwestern, man. I mean, we've just had some
Forgot about Northwestern.
yeah, like everybody has because they're so bad these days. But look, let me put it this way: I definitely wouldn't mind if Northwestern's in that pod because that's just like a win. Sorry, Northwestern.
Okay.
Sorry, Northwestern. Okay, let's be honest, bro.
Last year, dude.
We have sucked for 10 years. That's what we're trying to get out of. You know what I mean? Like they shouldn't have been beating us. They shouldn't have. You know what I mean? So the way you look at Northwestern is like they're really bad most years, and every once in a while they'll be pretty good. So they're an honorable mention. I wouldn't mind playing them every year, and respect to them. We've had some fun games against Northwestern over the years. But yeah, so that's an interesting dynamic to me. The Big Ten moving into 16 teams. That's gonna be fun to watch. Next year is really going to feel like the pre-show for 2024 because I mean you still have the 14 playoff. Texas and Oklahoma are still in the Big 12. USC and UCLA are still in the Pac-12. But everyone knows what's coming. So I'm very excited for 2024. 2023 is going to be great. It'll be like the end of the last part of this era, but I'm very excited for 2024. But yeah, so it'll be fun. It'll be fun. One more thing I wanted to mention on this pod, Early Break with Sip and Jake. So Early Break with Sip and Jake is a radio show that happens on 93.7 The Ticket every morning, and I've been listening to it for a while. It's a pretty good show, but since the beginning of the year, they've had Bill Bush on for the entire show, every episode,
Wow.
and he's hilarious. He's so funny, man. He just like has these tics. Like he's a coach, and you can tell like he's just been a coach for 30 years, and like he just like after every other phrase he says like that. Like he'll just be like like that, like that, and like everything is outstanding. It's outstanding like that. Outstanding. It's just hilarious. So if you're interested in listening to Coach Bush, I highly suggest checking out those podcasts they do every morning. They're on their YouTube channel. I just want to give them a shout out because I've really been enjoying it. It's really awesome. Yeah, and he gives really good insight. Obviously, I mean, it seems like everything they talk about, he's like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy. We worked here. You know, like, here's probably what he's thinking." And blah blah blah. It's just great. So if you want any insight onto Nebraska football from a coach perspective, a guy who's really has a legendary resume, if you really look at it, worked with Urban Meyer at Utah, worked at Wisconsin, worked at LSU, worked at Ohio State. I mean, like, this dude's just worked everywhere. So you wanted to give him a shout out because, like, man, it's made my day every day. I'm like, all right, time to listen to Coach Bush. Like, but yeah, so yeah, shout out there. And I also wanted to remind y'all to go ahead and subscribe and like to the podcast. We enjoy doing it. And, you know, it helps us out to subscribe and like to the YouTube channel. So go ahead and do that. And also follow us on Twitter at @CHusker_corner and on Instagram called Cornhusker Corner. So, yeah. Do you have anything else for the day?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably do another one next time. A good amount of news cycles back up.
We'll probably do one next month, and then maybe one right before I go to the spring game, little preview, and then we'll do one when I get back. You know, and then summer will be here, and before you know it, fall camp will be here, and then before you know it, we'll be in Ireland playing Northwest. Oh wait, we'll be in Minnesota playing the Fighting Flex.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for today on Cornhusker Corner. Always remember that there's no place like
this podcast.